Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hey friends, got a video you should see here. Let's take a look at that. We'll discuss it on the other side.
Not remember you kindly for what you have done. They will not. As a matter of fact, history might not remember you at all.
Isaiah Martin was speaking out against President Trump's calls to add more Republicans to Congress through redistricting.
You need to have shame. History will not remember you for what you have done. It is a shame. It is horrific for what you have.
Martin now faces misdemeanor charges of resisting arrest, criminal trespass, and disrupting a meeting.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. How many times have I said on this show that we need more Democratic leaders with some fight in them? You might have seen my interview a few months ago with Isaiah Martin, who you just saw in that viral clip. If you had any doubt back then about Isaiah's willingness to fight for his constituents, for democracy, well, he put those doubts to rest at that hearing in Texas, led by Republicans intent upon forcing through one of the most egregious gerrymandering schemes in our nation's history on the orders of Donald Trump. I spoke with Isaiah after he was released from jail and cleared of all charges. Here's our conversation. Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. I've got Isaiah Martin back. You just saw that unbelievable clip of Isaiah being dragged to the ground for speaking the truth by calling out this offensive, outrageous attempt to subvert democracy in Texas by stacking the deck against Democrats and for Republicans, leading to a dramatic overrepresentation of ours in that delegation. And Isaiah and other Texans are having none of it. But the very act of speaking up merited that kind of violence. Isaiah, first of all, I'm sorry you went through that. I know you're strong and you're resilient and you're able to laugh about it now. But take us back to that moment. I mean, it was just a few days ago. Yeah. It can be terrifying because you don't know how it's going to go. You don't know if some overzealous cop is going to decide to make a name for himself, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, going to jail wasn't on my bingo card for this year, but, here we are. I mean, ultimately, what you saw there is Texas Republicans doing everything they can to silence people because they thought that, by doing this to me, that they would teach me a lesson by sending me to jail and then I would just come out and be quiet about it. And ultimately what they just did, I mean, they're just so stupid. This is Republicans. They now ignited so many people, millions of people across America talking about how this gerrymandering scam is ridiculous and how failed their policies are. So, I mean, yeah, it was a terrible experience. Going to jail is not fun, but I think now I can come out on the laughing end of the stick because America has seen just how insane these idiots actually are.
The charge was Mr. Martin refused to obey, which I hope we see on bumper stickers, right?
100%.
What happened to the charges? Are you going away for 20 years? I mean, I know the answer, but tell our audience just how ridiculous the entire scenario was from a legal perspective.
Yeah, all the charges were dropped. I mean, what was even funnier about this whole thing is when they take me up, right? They take me outside the Capitol. All the officers around me thought that, they were just going to say like, okay, don't come back for the rest of the day or whatever, right? But the guy who tackled me, Officer Pillsbury Doughboy, as I call him, he goes and he gets this phone call and he's waddling around, talking on the phone. I don't know who he's talking to. And all of a sudden he comes up to me and he says, you're going to be placed under arrest for resisting arrest and trespassing. And I thought to myself, first of all, you never told me I was under arrest. Second of all, how can you trespass in the state taxpayer funded Capitol at a hearing that I was scheduled to speak at? Well, none of it made any sense. But again, it wasn't about them trying to actually put charges on me. It was about teaching me a lesson. They knew that sending me to jail would, I guess, invoke fear into so many people in the state to not want to go and testify at their own hearings. So, like I said, the whole thing was a joke. To be honest with you, it was a 30-hour period that I was in jail. And when they came on the intercom and they told me that to come to the very front, I thought I was going to court. I had no idea that these charges had been dropped. And at that time, I'm thinking like, I'm running for Congress. I haven't showered in 2 days. I got to get myself right, because it's like this is about to be everywhere. And then the guard basically says, go down to the front. I get in an elevator. She said, you're going to make a right and you're going to go and you're going to get your stuff and you're going to get out of here. And I was looking at her like, what? Wait, what? Right? But, I read like the 48 laws of power, never interrupt your opponent when they're making a mistake, And so I was thinking like, okay, let's just run with this and see what happens. And I walked to the end, I changed my clothes, and the last officer tells me, all your charges have been dropped. And so I was immediately shocked and then walk out and I see all the TV cameras outside. And I was like, wow, this really popped off. But like I said, these Republicans are stupid. And they inadvertently created a firestorm on just how insane their policies are.
Stupid and cowardly. And this is a refrain I am repeating again and again because I think it helps to remind ourselves of it in this moment. We all know that courage is contagious, and watching actions like yours inspires so many other people. But we're beginning to realize that cowardice is contagious too. And the Republican cowards who thought they could cow you, just a few hours later, you're back in front of them and they've got nothing to say. Let's roll that clip right here because it's fantastic.
You Republicans tried so hard to silence me. You had me thrown in jail. And I wanted to come here to look every single one of you in the eye and let you know personally that you failed. You tried and you failed. Just like you will try and fail when it comes to this gerrymandering scheme that you're about to pull off. But as a result of what you have done, millions more are now talking about this sham that you guys have perpetuated. More states have come forward saying that they are going to gerrymander Republicans out of their seats. That is a cost of what you have done, because the people will rise up, whether you like it or not.
Were those the same Republicans? Is that the same committee that had you dragged out and thrown to the floor 30 hours earlier?
Yes, it was. And honestly, that was probably the most satisfying moment of my life. Just to go and watch them turn bloodshot red, as you literally see, I guess, in that clip, me just lighting into them. I mean, because I wanted to look them in the eye personally to let them know they didn't stop anything. They failed. They tried so hard to suppress what I had to say in the voices of so many people. Because remember, I didn't do this, because I just wanted to just pop off. I was sitting in a hearing room for 4 hours and I watched these Republicans talk to grandmothers and laugh at them. Basically, as they're pouring their heart and souls out about why they don't want to see Medicaid cuts and why they don't want to see these ridiculous district lines. And so I saw them have to eat crow immediately in front of the same constituency that they seek to suppress. And honestly, it was a great moment in my life that I'll never forget.
I want people to look at the makeup of that committee as I ask you an uncomfortable, but I think inevitable question. Do you think I would have been treated the same way?
It's a good question. I don't know. But, I think ultimately what the Republicans are looking into right now are trying so hard to get seats because they're so unpopular, right? So they're coming after our district because ultimately they're down 8 points in the polls. It's the most unpopular presidency at this point in American history to start a presidency. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so, look, I think that they would come after everybody. They came after me and they'd come after you. They'd come after all of us. It's insane.
Well, that is an incredibly graceful answer. I think there's a racial element here, and I'll just be the one to say it. And I appreciate you being diplomatic about it. But can you explain what's at stake for the country? Because, I mean, this seems like an esoteric redistricting question for Texas, but it's not. I mean, this is coming from the top. This is Donald Trump shaking in his boots saying, I'm about to have a final check on my authority in the House of Representatives. We got to do anything we can to keep it. And that's the order that Texas is implementing. It's an order from the boss, right?
100%. I mean, because these weak Republicans, I mean, they know that they have to get Trump's endorsement. That's what this is all about. These Republican state reps know that a Trump tweet is all that's necessary to completely wreck their entire lives, right? So they know, look, that them sitting in that committee room, they have no choice They don't know what the heck is going on. They're just sitting up there to rubber stamp anything Trump does because they're Republican puppets. Ultimately, what we need in this country are folks that are willing to say that instead of just trying to appease these losers and be more focused on saying, look, this is what the Republicans do. How are we going to make this country more affordable? Make America more affordable is my top agenda in this country. And I think that if we focus on that, we're going to wipe these guys out in the biggest electoral landslide that we've seen in a generation.
Well, say more about that because I like to end on an optimistic note whenever I can. Share with this audience what you shared with me about just the grassroots energy of your campaign, what you're seeing across the district, and how it feels being at the tip of the spear when it comes to defending democracy.
Absolutely. Well, you know, what I always know is that this campaign is about me. It's about all of us. And as a result of that, we have been able to raise in just a couple days, $200,000 at an average of $17 a person because of the grassroots energy that we have seen in this campaign. 1,000 folks signed up to volunteer. So many people talking about it. Millions of views across the internet, an additional 100,000 followers on Instagram and other things like that. But most importantly, it is the emails I get from the grandmothers that are getting a few dollars of their Social Security checks to our campaign because they know and understand that they want somebody that's going to challenge the status quo and fight back against this stuff. So we are really seeing so much insurgency in our campaign. And I just couldn't be more proud to lead a movement of regular people looking to change this country for the better.
Where can people learn more about it and how can they help?
Absolutely. They can go to IsaiahMartin.org, IsaiahMartin.org. You can chip into the campaign. You can also sign up to volunteer. You don't have to be in the district to volunteer. You can also be around the country because we do phone banks as well. But sign up to volunteer, chip into the campaign, and let's send these guys a message.
Isaiah, if I had planned ahead well enough, I would have pulled up one of our first emails back and forth where I said, Isaiah, I think what people are looking for is a fighter, is some energy and sticking it to the Republicans and Trump. I'm not sure I had quite in mind you going to jail for us, but thanks for doing it. And I really appreciate your leadership. Keep it up.
Absolutely, kid. Thanks so much.
So, yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, look, like Isaiah said, okay, Trump's popularity is in the fucking toilet. And the public's hands are on the fucking lever to flush it. Okay? He knows this. I mean, as dumb as he is as a president, he understands he's not very popular right now. And so he's got to do something to hang on to power. But here's the thing. After almost 7 months now as president, he's not only pissed off, the country, but he's actually pissed off his base. And he's got people, that are, willing to, people in the Republican Party that are willing to come out and take a stand against him. Okay? And maybe not so many in Texas, but definitely, in Washington, D.C., He's got an opposition rising up against him within his own party. So he can, this redistricting stuff. Now, remember, in a previous video I had mentioned how the Governor Newsom had a discussion with some Democrats from Texas last Friday? I think it was. Yeah, last Friday. And I guess this is what they were talking about, is this big scheme they're going to try to pull off in Texas in order to not only hang on to power, but grab more of it, grab more, to hold on to their electoral votes, I guess. But what's happening is these people are creating a fucking resistance here. The more they tighten their fucking grip here around the throat of America, the more people are coming out against them. So it's, I feel like, there needs to be some understanding here that just because you go and you tackle somebody to the ground the way they did to Isaiah here, when you tackle somebody to the ground that way, you're not scaring them. You're not shutting them up. You're creating anger. People see that and they get, oh yeah, you think you're going to get away with it? All of a sudden they want to stand up and fight, okay? Because there's one thing that nobody likes is bullies. They don't like fucking bullies. Trump, that's what he is. He's a fucking bully. He's not a president. He doesn't have the skill to be a president, because as a president you have to understand the people you lead. And everything that he's been doing this year has only been to infuriate, or at least maybe, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose, but the result has been infuriating the public, pissing them off, getting mad at the bully. And that's how we see Trump. He's the bully and he needs to get his nose popped. Okay? You know, and usually that happens when, you know, people have taken enough and they stop running from the bully, they turn around and they smack him. And that's usually when the bully will go meekly away, you know. But this is what Trump does. He's a thug. And as a thug, you cannot lead a country in that fashion, because you're going to create anti-thuggery in America, which means you're getting people a reason to coalesce around causes. And it's a hard thing to do it in this country, believe it or not. It is a hard thing to get people to come together against something. The situations have to get really dire in order to motivate people to wake up and stop, you know, what was happening. But Trump's managed to do that. He's managed in his, you know, bullish way to unite this country against him. That's pretty incredible, I think. For people who are thinking, oh, Americans are just going to lie down and take it, you know, maybe for a time they will, but there's going to come a point where people are going to have enough. All right, and like was said, you know, the elderly people that were at that gathering there where Isaiah was basically thrown out. There was elderly people there who were upset. They're worried about their Social Security, you know, and he said the people on the panel sitting there giggling, laughing about it, you know, hey, all you're doing is throwing more fucking salt into the wound. You're just making people that much angrier. And I think it's pretty well obvious at this point, as far as they're concerned, that if if everything stays as it is, next year it's going to be a tidal wave of blue washing over this country as they take power away from MAP and from those people who support Trump. Okay, and you know, I think that's there's a lesson to be learned there for those people in you know, in the Republican side, you know, the right wing, who think that they can get what they want simply by forcing it down our throats. I think there's a lesson to be learned that, look, if you try and force your views on people in this fashion, you know, and you're really, you know, bullish about it, it gets you nowhere. You end up losing in the end. Okay. You know, these people here that claim they own the libs, like some of the people that comment on my videos and stuff, they're just there to, you know, get under my skin basically, but it doesn't work. But these are the folks I'm talking about. They're the ones that are saying, oh, we owned you, you know, suck up or whatever. You know what? That, you know, you guys, you're just hanging yourself, because you don't own anybody by forcing your views on them. They fight back. Okay, and in the end, you end up being the loser. And right now, you're losing. Everything that you gained in January, you've lost already in just 7 months. Well, not quite 7, but, you know, in over 6 months, you've already lost everything that you've gained. Sure, Trump got things going, but they weren't things you wanted, was it? Okay, a lot of that stuff that he's done so far in this almost 7 months were things you didn't think he was going to do, A, and B, things you didn't think he was going to do. Okay, he lied to you, and some of you people have realized that, but he lied to all of you folks. And now he's desperate to hang on to what he's got, because he sees that he's going to have a problem hanging on to the houses. Okay, so this is where he stands, and he created this. He fucking created this problem. What he should have done, if he was interested at all about not going through this was to not be such a bully in the first couple of years of his presidency. That way he could have hung on to his fucking houses, and then he could have done what he wanted afterwards. But no, you see, he couldn't wait to get in there and start doing shit. Okay? And so he gets in there, and now, you know, he's turned the world against him. He's got the country turning against him. He's got his own party turning against him. He's even got former MAGA people turning against him. I mean, come on. You know, he sees the handwriting on the wall. I just read an article here somewhere. Pete Hegseth is thinking about resigning his job. He wants to run for governor or some goddamn thing, possibly. Okay, but I guess, you know, he's realized that he wasn't up to the task of doing the job either. Okay, unfortunately, Trump won't resign. But like I said, a lot of people ain't going to cross that line that Trump is willing to cross. Some people are going to realize, or at least have enough common sense to realize that they've gone too far, and they're going to back off. And I think Hegseth, because he's so despised now, he's understanding that, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm thinking maybe he's been getting a lot of shit from Trump or something like that. And now the job that he got doesn't look so good anymore. And so maybe he's thinking about leaving. I'm happy about that he might think he's thinking about leaving, but it's not going to solve anything, because the next dingbat that Trump puts in there is going to be just as bad, if not worse, than Hegseth. So as long as you got the poison root there in the cause of this administration, nothing's ever going to get better. No matter how many branches you pull off of this thing, okay, it's always going to have another ugly branch grow from it. And what's going on here in Texas, this redistricting thing here that's going on, that's cheating before the fact. I don't know if you people realize what that is. Okay, when you're sitting here carving up areas of your state to give more advantage to your party, that's cheating before the fact. That doesn't actually represent, you know, the state. When you do that, you're just tilting it to your favor, but it's not the actual representation of your state. So you're lying basically in this redistricting, so that way your state can come out on top, you know, as far as whatever party or what you belong to. So it should be illegal, I think. Okay, and if they do it at all, it should be done by independent people who are not affiliated with either party or in any way. Okay, they should be doing that, not members of the, you know, one party or members of the other party. That should be independent to look at, you know, to see how you can do it fairly, to make it fair. But see, they don't want it to be fair. They want it to be their side and their side only that gets all the thing. So this is why there's such a push, because Texas holds a lot of electoral votes. It's a key state, and you're going to find this kind of corruption runs heavy in states that have a lot of electoral votes. Those states that are, you know, that don't have that many, you're not going to see so much effort put there in that kind of regard. But those bigger states with when I mean bigger, but the states with the electoral votes that are, you know, in high numbers, you know, like Florida and Texas and California, you're going to see a lot of that shit going on, because those are big political states that matter in elections. Okay, so you want to talk about, you know, they said they created this electoral system to make it more fair, more a fair representation for each state. But you see how it doesn't make it fair? Because the states that have the most electoral, they're the ones that get most of the attention, right? Everybody else, fuck you, you know. Okay, so we're not getting fair representation. That's why I keep saying we ought to just get rid of all that system and just go to one person, one vote across the country. If there's only one person living in your fucking state, okay, then that's one vote, okay? And if there's like 1 billion people living in a tiny state, then that's 1 billion votes. But at the end of the day, we're going to count one vote for, you know, one person, and that whoever gets the most, you know, vote, like what you did when you was in high school. Remember the student council thing? Same fucking thing. They didn't go by classrooms, you know, how many are in this classroom that are going to vote this way. They didn't make it that way. It was one student, one vote. And at the end, all the votes were counted equally. and the one that grabbed the highest number won. That's the most simplest fucking way to do it, but yet they don't want it that way. Okay, they don't want it that way. They want it to have some kind of rig baked into the game, and it's now that it is, it ain't enough for some. Now they want to rebake this fucking cake and put more in the fucking recipe here to make it even less unfair, and that's what I mean by redistricting. They want to change the layout of the fucking game board, essentially, and that's cheating before the fact, and that should be illegal. If it's illegal after an election to try and do like what Trump was doing, like give me some goddamn votes, I don't care, you know, and that's wrong, then it should be before the fact. If you're trying to change the game board before the game starts, that's cheating too. So why do we let that go on? Why do we let this shit happen? You know, there's so many things that we need to tweak in our system of government here to improve it, to streamline it, to make it more efficient. But nobody wants that to happen, especially the politicians. They want to keep shooting those ideas down because, oh, it's going to upset the vote, you know, it's going to do this, it's going to make us lose. You know, everybody's got the skin in the game. But if you're an honest politician, fairness should be number one, right? Following the Constitution should be number one, okay? And nobody said that if you find flaws in the system, you can't try and fix them, okay? So we have a flaw. The Electoral College, I think, is a flaw. We need to get rid of it and just make this such an easier fucking way to vote, okay? Where nobody's going to be counting electoral votes at the end of the day. We're going to be counting regular votes from every citizen in this country, you know. And since we got computers now, it can be done so quick today. You know, it wouldn't have to be all done on paper because, you know, a computer vote registers right off. So you would know that fucking night, election night, who won. And they wouldn't still be counting votes, you know, unless there are absentee ballots. But, you know what I'm saying? It'd make this process so much simpler because even to this day, adults my age and older don't really understand how the electoral system works, you know, because it's designed to be vague. It's designed to be, you know, something that it will feel sinister, you know, at the end of the day. And you don't want to have a system that, you know, you pride yourself on saying, oh, we're a free society, you know, we're a free nation. If we are, then let's show it. You know, let's do the right thing and make this goddamn election process fair and upfront, transparent, you know. So that way, you know, when people start talking about cheating, you know, you could say, well, we got an easy way to figure that out. Just go back and recount the votes, you know, and leave the Electoral College the hell out of it, okay? But Isaiah, you know, strong guy that he could sit and laugh about it after the fact, but he got his last word in there. I was happy to see that. He went back there and he told those fuckers, you know, what you did there ain't gonna work. People are gonna fucking turn against you. You don't even realize it. You think you got it, you know, your way, but you're only building the momentum against you, and when it comes down, it's gonna come down hard. Because when you don't listen to people and you keep doing things to rile them up and get them angry, what happens? You know, the cork in the bottle is going to pop out of there at some point, and then you're going to have one hell of a mess, you know. And, you know, for some of these old fucks that are in the Republican side of things, they may think, oh, they can get away with it and it won't matter because they'll be dead and buried or something. Hey, you can think you win now, but it's only in your mind that you won. Later on, when your side loses, they're going to be scratching their head and trying to wonder, you know, where do we go wrong? You know, how did it all turn against us? You see, that's because they're not paying attention. They're not doing the will of the people. And when they stop doing the will of the people, that's when bad things happen. Okay? You can't run a country as a dictatorship because we already know that doesn't work. You can't run a country with a meager free system and try to control it the way Trump's doing now, because that doesn't work. So what's left but simply to be honest, fair, and transparent. Why is that so hard to get from our government? You know, and I'm not just talking about Trump, but I'm talking about every damn presidency we've ever had in this country. Transparency is a must. You know, when you lose people's trust, you've lost a lot. That's a hard thing to get back. And you know, in people's mind is to trust their government. When you lose that, you're losing a lot. Why do you think so many people don't vote? Because they don't trust the government. They think that, you know, what they have to say doesn't matter. How did that happen? Decades and decades of lies and not being transparent. People are so tired of it. And this guy, Trump, he's the icing on that whole cake of that argument right there. The most untransparent and the most corrupt administration this country has ever had in its 250-year history. The most corrupt. All right? And what do you think is going to come out of that? You're going to have civil unrest. You're going to have a big swoopy changes in government, the way government looks. People are going to be very unhappy, and that can't last. That's not going to last because it leads to revolt. It leads to, you know, a toppling of regimes. You see this happen around the world in these smaller countries. It doesn't mean because they're small countries that it can't happen here. You know, a government is a government. So, but I'm glad Isaiah stood up and came back, you know, and of course they dropped all the charges because all they wanted was to get him out of that room, to shut him up, okay? But that didn't stop him. He came back, and they had no grounds to arrest him. So, yeah, he has every right to sue if he wants. I don't know if he's going to bother, but, you know, he's trying to run for a seat, and I hope he gets it because, you know, he comes across as a guy who generally cares about what's happening. And if you don't care about what's happening, nobody wants anything to do with you, you know. But he cares, and I think he's worth a shot to, you know, to have him spend time in a political seat to see what he can do. You know, I really think that he's worth that the risk. I don't see that. You know, he's the kind of guy that's trying to dupe people. You think Trump would have done, you know, if somebody threw Trump out on his ear or something like that, you think, you know, he would have come back or something? No, that's a different guy. That's a different guy. He doesn't have the character. But yeah, God, there's so much going on with this administration. There's so many fucking things to talk about, to write about, to do videos about. It's a big job in itself just to sift through the things that come out each and every day in this country. Trump did this, Hegseth did that, you know, Bondi said this. You know, there's always something. There's always something. You know, it's in, you know, I could see why some of these people that do this online have staff, because they go through everything that happens and they have to choose out of what they read or saw. And then at the end of the day, they got to figure out, okay, we'll cover this topic or these two topics or three. There's a lot of work there to it, you know. But you know, when you're doing this like what I'm doing by yourself, I mean, it's overwhelming. You know, there's a lot that I don't get the time to talk about, because by the time I do, it seems like it's old news, and it's like nobody really wants to hear it if it's like 2 days old or something. But you know, at the time it seemed important to think about it, but you know, other things were going on that you thought were even more important. So you know, you just have to, I don't know. I thought this was important to talk about because it's showing, it kind of connects to what I was saying over the weekend about what was being discussed in California with Governor Newsom, and he was talking about this redistricting issue here that Texas is facing, and they were working together, the Democrats there and the Democrats in California. And then this you know, story come out. So I thought that it was important to follow up on that, to kind of give a little more clarity here as to what the hell's going on here. And apparently there's a big scheme going on with the Republicans in Texas to redistrict large swaths of the state in Republican favor. And he's calling them out on that, saying, we know what you're doing, okay? You're cheating before the fact. That's what you're doing. And because you're legally able to do that doesn't make it like that it's moral. It's not. It's immoral and it's unethical. No matter if there's no law that prevents it, it's an unethical thing you're doing. And and at the end of the day, the state's not going to actually represent what the people are really wanting when you do stuff like that. So yeah, he was right about that. You're just playing this you're playing this game crookedly, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. All right, so I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.